Call this meeting to order. Finance Committee, March 4th, 2026. Mayor Davis is not here, so there's no, unless Adam, you have something for the mayor? No. Welcome all the members, and we have a lot of guests here. We'll forgo welcoming everybody, but Commissioner Collins, if you'll lead us in a word of prayer, and I'll say, let's get us started on the pledge. If you would, please stand. Amen. Stand, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible. Okay, I appreciate you guys being here. When this came up, we had a pretty busy finance committee meeting on Monday, and I didn't want to put this on there and have a 4 or 5 hour meeting on Monday. And so the purchase order is the only thing that we're going to talk about today. There's no voting or anything like that. This is a chance Cassandra brought to our attention, I believe, when you guys picked up your packets. You were introduced to, I guess, the new policy on purchase orders and stuff like that, that they had to be closed within 6 months. If I'm incorrect on anything from our finance department, please let me know. I'm going to read something real quick, and then we'll talk about, I guess, going forward. The Finance Committee recognizes that the move from a 12-month to 6-month purchase order closure window is a real adjustment, and we appreciate your patience as we work through this. Change was not initiated by the Finance Committee. It is a policy decision made by the mayor and the county finance director, implemented in direct response to guidance from the state auditors. Our role today is to help you find the best path forward. We've got some, we received the opening purchase order from the general fund and the fire fund and the road department. So we have some numbers and stuff like that. But basically, I think it all boils down to this. As Cassandra said the other day, you guys have purchase orders and you're counting on that variance between correct me with my terminology, what you open the purchase order with. When we see the purchase order, you have the liquid amount and unliquid amount, and you have that amount in there, and you're counting on that in order to pay the bill, so to speak. And the question, I guess, is when that purchase order closes, that money goes back into the fund balance for that particular fund, general fund or road department or fire fund. And since you already had that purchase order and you're, for the better lack of word, counting on it, do you increase your budget request to compensate for it? Not compensate, but basically you needed that to pay the bill, so to speak. Or do you send over amendments to pull money out of the fund balance, because that's where it went when the purchase order closed? So is that it? And Cassandra or anybody, this is an open floor. There's no being recognized or anything like that. So, but you're going to have to come up here so I can hear you, so everybody else can hear you. And Adam, you're welcome to come in or whatever. So is that it? I mean, have I captured the concern pretty much? So I'll just say, and we can set it, I'm more leaning towards, because there's, I guess, two questions that I'll ask you guys. And we kind of talked about it the other day. Is this a one-time thing here in the 25, 26, or as we go into the 26, 27 year? Because when we approve the budget coming up, the 26, 27 budget, and they put in there X amount for fuel or for whatever line items, they will have in their approved budget the money that we agreed on, for the better lack of the word.
Yes, so how it's happening right now is come May, we do PO cutoff, and what they're used to is tying up basically everything they have, and then they use those POs into the next year. So we're trying to get away from that, so they're actually working out of the current budget. So, in my opinion, they don't really need to increase their budget, because every year when we get to the next May, they are then going to tie up that money again. They always have this money to tie up. They're just basically working out of a different year, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
About 6 months of it, they're working out of prior year POs, whereas now we're saying for any prior year POs, it needs to be prior year invoices.
Exactly. So, but you have some purchase orders, as we saw in the open PO, go all the way back to 2024.
So what we did this past year is any prior year purchase orders was supposed to be closed in December, unless there's always exceptions. If there's an ongoing project or they let us know that it needed to be kept open for a reason for an ongoing purchase, then we kept it open. I believe there was a few, she went back and looked at them, and there was a few that were just missed, and they've since been closed, I believe.
So our report's already outdated, so to
yes,
speak. All right.
yes. She looked at that yesterday.
Okay.
So.
Adam, please.
I don't want to speak for all the other department heads, and I'm kind of wearing two hats
Sure.
when I'm talking right now. I know where the mayor stands on this.
Well, you're a director right
And
now.
I do think, I'll use EMS as an example. I do think it's going to represent a potential to ask for an increase because, look at it this way, right? I get to the end of this fiscal year, and I have $500,000 left over that I haven't spent. What I've typically done is, absolutely right, tie up all that money. You know, whether I've got a project, you know, a lot of times if I've got leftover money, I'll do something that maybe I didn't get in my budget last year, or a project that I don't want to ask for in the next budget year, right? And so we tie up that money. My philosophy has been, you gave it to me to begin with, I don't want to give a dime back. I don't want to waste it, right? But I don't want to give it back necessarily either. That's the way we've been doing business, all the departments. If the change is stop that, the auditors say no, then I'm used to spending, this is how I look at it. Let's use the $500,000. I have a $7.5 million budget that you all approved, but I'm spending $8 million, right? When I tie up $500,000 from last year and I spend $7.5 million this year, I'm actually spending $8 million total. It's just, it's a calendar thing, right? It's where am I spending that $8 million? You didn't give me $8 million, but if you're saying I can't spend the 500 anymore, and I don't have that much left over, by the way, but for simple math, if you're saying I can't tie up and save and use that 500,000, then I am going to have to increase my request by 500,000. I think it's a one-time thing, right? If you're saying this is it, you all have the decision. Are you going to let us come back and pull that money out of the general fund? I don't think that that's probably what anybody wants to do, but, and this is going to affect every department differently. I don't know how much, I know the sheriff's office uses this quite a bit. EMS this year will probably not have as much as we've had in years past, but it seems to me that it should only have to happen once. If you say no, we're not going to let you, if you're not going to let us pull it back out of the general fund in July or August, then it, for some people and for different reasons, it is going to mean that we have to increase a particular line or a budget to cover that.
And that's kind of where I was thinking a little bit as well. On the one-time thing, or on every spring, we're going to have this because.
But what the mayor has said, and I don't know if he said this publicly or not, increase your budget with justification. Right?
That's exactly what he and I talked about.
If so, in other words, if I need that $500,000 in next year's budget that I've been counting on from last year's budget year after year after year, then increase my next year's budget request by $500,000. The justification is there's that $500,000 in the general fund to cover that increase, right? So that's, I mean,
that's kind of the way I was
for him
thinking.
when that's how he would prefer us to do it. From an accounting standpoint, that's what they need done. That way we're all operating in the same fiscal year. And frankly, from his perspective, it makes it a lot easier to budget because he sits over there for months this time of year trying to budget when all of these open POs are sitting out there. If we know that they're closed out, we know that that money's either going to be used or put back in the general fund, it makes it a whole lot easier to budget moving forward.
I agree. And we really never got into the whole purchase order thing. I've been watching ARP money because there's no new money coming into ARP. They got the $22 million and he just kind of dwindled down. I mean, there's some interest that the principal's making, but other than that, it's just been dwindling down. So as the purchase orders are closed, I've been watching that, but I've never seen a general fund or a road fund or, what was the other one? Oh, fire fund purchase order close report until you sent one over to the other. That's the first I ever seen that. The numbers are pretty big, and that kind of is what I was thinking. Going to the fund balance is not the best way to do it. It may be this one time, because the fund balance is a percentage of the expenses. We have a fund balance policy that says a certain amount of percentage of the same thing that missing here. The fund balance is a percentage of the expenses, right? That's the policy. I think it's what 17% for the general fund, 5% for fire fund. I forget what roads is, 7%. I can't remember. Anyway, a percentage of the total expenses in there. You start pulling money out of the fund balance, especially with these kind of numbers, you're going to hurt that percentage, obviously. I mean, no, for this particular time, the money's going back into the fund balance for those respective funds because they close the PO, the money is back into it. It raises that part. But ongoing, you can't have your expenses a certain amount that you approve through a budget process and then go to the fund balance. It's kind of one or the other, right? Okay.
Yes, and I was going to mention, he said something about ongoing projects. Any ongoing projects, we will leave open. There's going to be exceptions to everything. And especially the sheriff's department, like if they have something going on, we're not going to close those POs. It's mainly, when I say people tie up all their money, I'm talking utility lines and everything so they don't
Yeah,
lose
we
it.
see.
And we shouldn't see any POs for utilities. They can all be paid out the line. We don't need a PO. So we're not going to do them now because they don't need to carry them over into the next year, because they have next year's money to pay for their utilities. So there's going to be some stuff that's going to be exceptions, especially with sheriff and EMS being such large departments.
And Parks has 128,000. It looks like. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we got a kind of a list here: drug court, and some others. But yeah, sheriff's office, 530,000 unliquidated or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's, I guess, your call. But
Yeah.
they were asking, Cassandra, correct me if I'm wrong, how they should proceed. They're getting their
Yeah.
budgets ready to be submitted to your office and then sent over here. And they, I guess that's what Cassandra was asking the other day in law enforcement was, how do you want us to proceed? Do you want us to increase our request to cost, or do you want us to submit budget amendments and have the finance committee and the full commission approve those budget amendments?
My advice, and that's all it is I would wait and see how it goes, because I don't think it's going to affect most departments as much as they think, because like I said, come May again, they're going to have a bunch of POs that they're going to tie up again and use into the next year, and they just keep doing that. Now, for stuff like the kitchen fire and stuff, that helped her having open POs from prior year. That definitely helped. So something like that, they are going to have to come and do a budget amendment and ask for it for fund balance.
But those are emergencies.
Exactly. And that's how it should be. It should be done in the current year. It should be through a budget amendment just for it to be accurate accounting. It's going to make your reports more accurate. It's going to make budgeting easier. Overall, I think it's going to help everyone once they get used to it.
Yeah, but we also had one. Remember this when we had to pay America? What was the food?
Or, yeah.
America.
The,
You went back and you found
the kitchen
the
food
it's,
invoices.
yeah, I forget the name
years
of it.
ago.
America. What was the name of it?
Airmark.
Airmark. We owed them, and you went back and you found X amount of dollars over 4 or 5 years worth of purchase orders at that time. Anyway, go ahead, Cassandra.
So I guess my question is, I know we're wanting to have accurate accounting. So
Yes.
accurate accounting, and like she said, we can hold POs open. We can't use a PO from May to pay in August or a July invoice, which we have been doing in the past. So we've lived off of not asking for an increase when some of our items have went up, because we've been able to use those POs for a year. So I understand the accurate accounting part of the piece, but my $3.99 line, I pay stuff from open POs. So my question is if we could roll over our open POs to the fund balance and pull that out for 1 year, so then we can accurately account for everything we spend within a year. So in the 2027, 2028 budget, if we see we need an increase on the front side, we could do it that way, because we've accurately kept up with those invoices. Does
But
that
you-
make sense? So I may have paid $200,000, and it's not that much. But say for the kitchen, so I have $100,000 left over in my kitchen line for food. I've been able to pay invoices for that in the past. So it's kind of left that line, so we've not had to ask for an increase, because that's one line that is very hard to ask for an increase, because our payment to them is on a sliding scale based off of inmate population. There's just certain things like that. That's why I was asking, for 1 year, could we drop our open POs in July back into the fund balance and pull those? Because those amounts you're not seeing in the fund balance when you're working on this year, moving into next year's budget anyways. Those are all still tied up.
And
So
we-
it looks like money that we're tying up, if I could drop it back and then pull it back out for 1 year, and then the next budget year ask
right.
for the increases that I need.
And that's what you were kind of saying, is we've already approved that money through the budget process anyway. You just close the PO, whatever. So
Yeah, I
that
think,
lead,
but
that leads to it being a one-time kind of thing.
But I think if that's the decision, then you're still kicking the same can we're discussing today to next year, right? If you're going to say, all right, we can come back in July and open up
We're-
those or pull money from last year's budget into this year to pay. Let's use her $100,000, right? She's spending $100,000 from last year's budget. Get to the end of this year's budget, she still has $100,000 left.
I'm just agreeing
right?
that
And so-
that's
huh?
what we're. I'm just agreeing that that's the battlefield. That's what we're up against. I'm not saying we're agreeing to it.
No. What I'm her example. Okay, she's still ending up next year with $100,000 left in that line. So all we are doing, all she is doing, is carrying $100,000 over every year in the same line. So rip the Band-Aid off and just increase next year's budget request by $100,000. Problem solved.
That's what we're
Now
going to
that's if you budget that way. There's people like me that just don't want to give the money back because it's already been approved, and when we save $150,000 on maintenance, we go buy 2 vehicles with it, right? So that will be a problem. I'm less worried about, for me, how I budget. It's what we get to spend with the leftover money on that I would now have to come back and say I do need money for this.
But if
I
you
do
had-
need money for that.
And we'll just use as an example, but if you had extra money in your vehicle line and then you need new radios or you need something else, well, I mean, we've said this for years. Do we budget at the line level or do we budget at the account level? Do I basically say, here EMS, your account, you've got X amount of dollars, go forth and do well, and quit worrying about other than the salaries, because salaries are a little bit different from the 300, 400, 500s.
Yeah, I don't want you
You're
to
the director.
micromanage the line
knock
level.
yourself-
My-
we gave you X amount of dollars, go forth and do well. Or do we get into this line item?
It's going to back up my process, right? If I right now know that I'm going to have $50,000 left over in this line, okay, I've got an opportunity to spend it on something relevant in that line, or I could budget amendment into a different line and spend it there too. So I'm just going to have to sort of back my process up. So that's why I was saying earlier, there's two issues. There's people like me that save money, have money left over, that want to spend it on things that they need and not lose it. Lose it meaning give it back to the general fund. But then you also have other departments with some lines who are using that as how they budget, like she gave the example, right?
Yeah.
Cafeteria. She needs that $100,000 so that she doesn't have to increase this year's budget request by $100,000. But if the pattern continues, she's going to end up this time next year, at the end of next year's budget, with $100,000 just rolling it over and over and over.
No,
So
we-
if the
no.
auditors say stop, then now's the time to rip the Band-Aid off and say, Cassandra, up that line by $100,000. Your justification is there's $100,000 in last year's general fund that we'll fund it with.
Steve, I'm sorry, Sheriff
Yeah,
Fawcett.
and we'll go along with whatever program you choose. However, let me say that it would be nice to have a little warning up front when we start preparing our budget. And I
That's
would
what we're
like
doing
to-
today.
Yes, and the thing about it is, it's kind of hit us, and you know why I'm asking for different things in this budget. And it's kind of going to look like I've exploded it, simply because we, for years and years, as long as I remember the sheriff's office, have operated off of open purchase orders. And so then we extend it to 6 months. We could deal with that. That's not a problem. But now we turn around about 3 weeks prior to the budget being due and inform we got to do the other way. So it makes it tough on us. We'll adjust to whatever we need to adjust to. But still, I think if we plan for a little while before we done it and get everybody educated, it would be a whole lot smoother. That's
I'll
my
just-
opinion.
I'll just speak for myself and the other members can jump in. Put in your budget what you need in your budget request and go from there, right? I mean, because when you have a difference in your purchase order, and like Adam's example, you have $100,000 left over and you're going to use it for something else. We never see that. It's never seen. We don't look at purchase orders or anything like that. We just get an expense report at a very high level that says we budgeted X amount, they've used X amount, and this is what's left over at the line item. But what you purchased and how many purchase orders you have, the amount that's unliquid and all that, we never see that. So budget what you need. That's my opinion. Commissioner Alford, Commissioner Collins, Commissioner Slater, Commissioner Hughes, jump in. Commissioner Alford.
I have to agree with you, Mr. Blake, that I know this is gonna be a tough year. But as Adam said, I think rip the Band-Aid off this year and I think everything will start smoothing out after this year. This is gonna be the tough year. It's gonna be a tough year to adjust to the new system, but the auditors have more or less required us to do. So I would suggest doing what Mylan said, is add the extra money back to your budget, and that gives the mayor, what he needs to budget for come next year.
Is that all right with everybody? Can I get a nod? All right, Holly, Troy. All right, so you guys are working on your budget requests now. I forget when they're due. May 12th? Next Thursday? All right, so you got your work cut out for you. So, I think that's the cleaner way to go, because going to the fund balance is not the way to do it. Please.
So when I'm estimating my lines and say I increase my 399 line by $200,000, and then y'all cut it $100,000 because years past it doesn't look like I need that money, and I run negative, am I going to be able to come back and you're going to give it
We'll talk.
back to me in finance?
How this finance,
I
how
don't
the,
have to find it in my budget because I'm not going to have it to find.
how the finance committee and the full commission votes, I'll never know. But, I would say this, if you had 200,000, in your example, you had 200,000, we agreed that that's what you got in prior budgets, and it was justified in this budget request. I mean, for me, and not only speaking for myself, yeah, I mean, you justified it. And that's kind of what the mayor told me the other day when we chatted offline, is justify your 399 line. And,
We justify a lot, but it also gets cut, so that's
well,
what I'm
that's,
asking. So when I've justified to you that I need to increase my $100,000 in my sheriff's office 399 line to $200,000, because in the past I've had this many POs that I've been able to use for $100,000, but you cut it by 50, and then December I need to come back to you to ask you for more money because my line is negative. Is that gonna be okay?
I can't say if, I mean, once you have your budget approved, that's your money at that point, right? We've never cut your budget after we approved it.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is if I ask for it on the front end
Right.
and you cut what I've asked for, although I've justified it, and I end up needing it, am I gonna be able to come back to you
If-
and say, hey, I need this money, and I had X amount of money because that rolled back into the fund balance in July or December, because that would be the 6-month cutoff, can I use that money?
I understand the question. I can't answer it with a certainty that you probably would like, in the sense that it takes 8 votes to get stuff done up here, right? I mean, Commissioner Slater may feel different about this than I do. I'm just using you as an example, right? I mean, if you justified it, Cassandra, and we approved it, and I understand you said you already had it in the past, then I don't see how, from my point of view, you justified it. We agreed that that's the amount you're gonna have in 399 in your budget. After that, like I said, go forth and do well. I mean, so, yeah, we're gonna, obviously, with your budget request, the differences in the, I mean, what we looked at the other day in the summary, the total 1.5 million in PO commitments. Amount liquidated is 413,000. Unliquidated amount is 1.1 million. So there's a lot of money out there that hasn't been spent that's tied up in POs. As of your report that you sent the other day, you closed some since then, so, but not that much, I don't think.
I've only closed two that
Two.
I missed, yeah.
So it's still over $1 million of unliquid. I'm only talking about the general fund. So you got Cassandra and everyone, all those are in the general, I think everybody's general fund, right? Fire and roads is not here. There's over $1 million in unliquidated money out there. So I'm looking at the finance committee. We're going to see that in your budget request, but it's in the fund balance. It's coming back in the fund balance. That's what I told the mayor the other day. I was like, it's not that it's brand new money. We approved it in the 25-26 budget. The current budget, it's unliquid. They're being made to close their purchase orders. They're just basically in your budget request for like Cassandra's 399. If let's say that 200,000 of this 1.1 million is in that 399, she's going to request whatever she needs, which she actually spent. I mean, plus that 200,000, it justified. That's what you're saying, right?
I think what the majority of what we're seeing is there's always a decent amount of money left over every year that everybody tries to carry over. And really all that's happening is we're shifting the year around. It's not July to June. They're moving it around a little bit more. So they're always going to have that carryover. I don't think anybody is really truly going to need an increase. Just from what I see, from what I close and what everybody opens up and carries over at the end of the year.
But we'll take it in their budget request. I mean, all right. Go ahead.
I just think if they needed to increase their budget, they wouldn't have as many POs as they have at year end to tie up. All that money to tie up just to go into the next year. I think if we start going the route we're trying to go, maybe towards the end of next year, their budget should look really low because they're using all their money instead of tying it all up into the next year, if that makes sense. So I don't think there should be an increase up front. I think they should see how it goes. Of course, that's y'all's call, but
They have a right to submit what
Yes.
they feel they need.
yeah,
But on the purchase order, I've been wondering this. Is there different types of purchase orders, like the ones that you know, like Adam will use your example. He knows he's going to do a purchase order for an ambulance. And he ties up the money currently, but the delivery of the ambulance is going to take, 8 months, if not more, right? I mean,
yeah.
so
We would keep
do you
those
have
open.
purchase orders that you know are going to cross budget lines?
Yes, absolutely. And they just let us know on those. That's ongoing projects. That's something they're waiting on. Those would all stay open.
Okay. Commissioner Collins, Commissioner Alford. So I think that gives everybody, Holly, we're all friends and family here, or at least friends. Does that give everybody kind of what to do with your budget request? I'm looking at everybody. I get nods all around, so I look forward to seeing your budget request here in about a month. I say that facetiously. Anything else? Cindy, did I meet your timeline? All right.